Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Politdigm podcast. My name is Red, and today I'm joined by my co-host Alpha.
Once again, I am present.
And actually, before I do the intro, okay, you want to know a little fun thing about that little thing you just said?
Uh, sure.
Last episode, you said that too, and for some reason, like a transcript thing that I use, thought that you said my name is Al. Like, it thought that what I said and what you said was like one sentence, and thought that your name was Alpha. I'm a pretzel. That's like our alpha
First, that is
something
funny.
alpha pretzel. I was like,
That is funny.
I was like,
Second, it is scary that I said the exact same thing,
I was like, what? I was
and
like,
I do remember it.
because I started reading the transcript. I was like, or like the summary of the episode. I was like, so the episode is about red and alpha something pretzel. I was like, who the fuck is alpha? So it's like, what the fuck is this man? Anyways,
Shit, you found me.
they know your true identity. Your last name is Pretzel, Alpha Pretzel. Anyways,
Also, pretzel. Uh,
today is a Monday. It is the 9th of October. For those who are European, we are next month is 9/11.
what?
Yeah, I mean November 9th is our 9/11 in the sense of that's what the date says on the calendar. I don't know.
Well, tomorrow. No shit.
Tomorrow is
I have
10/10
the
though.
European calendar. Fuck.
Tomorrow is 10/10. Anyways, so it's a Monday, which means that this week's blog came out today, and it is
I
about a
sure do fucking hate Mondays. Sorry, continue.
girl field ass, lasagna loving ass. But
Yeah.
yeah. So this week's topic, yeah, which is also today, but this week's topic is capitalism, which is something that we've talked like a lot on these episodes, but we somehow never like we've talked about it a bunch and have like mentioned it like loosely in different episodes, but we've never actually written like a full blog dedicated to its evil thingies. I don't know what to call it. It's just bad, but we'll get into that. But before that, we have to do our customary plug of our Patreon. Of course, if you like these episodes and want to support us, make sure to support us over at Patreon. If you would like to join our community, make sure to join our community over at Discord. And if you are a
Which is
Patreon,
free,
what?
by the way.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
And if you are a supporter over at Patreon and you are part of Discord, you have access to some little perks, like being able to submit questions to the podcast Q&A, which at the end of each episode, we will be answering some of your questions to the best of our abilities. And with that said, it is time to get
Jump
into
into the capitalism.
jump into the blog. So this blog, I decided to do a bit of an alpha and go a little bit into
Haywire.
history because I don't really do that, but I decided that it was kind of necessary for the point that I wanted to make. So I went all the way back to medieval times to feudalism. Now, if you don't know what feudalism is, it is essentially the sort of earliest concept of an economy that we used to have. An economy relating to having a, sort of an actual transaction that isn't like a direct transaction, like being like, all right, you have bread and I have chickens and you want chickens and I want bread, and then you swap them, right? This
Yeah.
is when you started having some sort of like organized trade, which wasn't an organized trade. It was simply the idea that uh, you had taxes, which were not an actual current. It was not dealt with a currency, but rather produce, right? Like again, bread, chickens, whatever. And then the higher people did have some sort of, it's like richer people did have some sort of currency, etc. So feudalism is a system where you have lords, vassals, and serfs. Now, to put these easily, you have the lords, which would be the leaders of a kingdom or of a region, and then you would have the vassals, which are basically like they're like military
Second
people.
hand.
Yeah, they're like military people. They're basically like everything that isn't like a lord, but that has any sort of higher like importance.
Think of you have the mayor and then you have the deputy. It's
Uh,
the best way that I can explain it.
yeah, sure. And then you have the serfs, which is civilians, right? Like they're, or at the time, they're just workers. They're just the people that live in those cities or kingdoms or whatever. Um, so basically, the way that feudalism worked is lords had land, right? They owned land. They owned the land where their, you know, castle, everything was. And then they basically traded it with their vassals for basically their vassals' loyalty, right? So they would be like, all right, we'll give you land, and in return, you will give me your military aid, you'll give me your loyalty, et cetera, et cetera. And then the vassals took that and were like, and went to the serfs and went like, yo, if you give me a certain percentage of your produce, I will let you have this piece of land, which will allow you to also have your own production, your own means of getting food, etc., which at the time is a good idea. However, as you can imagine, this went, well, I won't say it went rogue, but it definitely never, because it never really was perfect, because the taxes that the regular workers had to, the farmers, whatever you want to call them, had to pay were uh, insane. Most
I
of the
just want to
times,
add a little something to what you're saying. To give you a bit of context, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
So, at this point of time, Middle Ages, it was common belief that it was the order established by God onto this world that there were lords and vassals. There were those that were made to serve,
Yeah.
and those that had the divine rights to rule over them. So it's not just, yo, I'm gonna give you some land. You are my property.
Yeah, it was, I am like putting this,
I am made to be your ruler. Cry about it.
yeah. So it was definitely a very toxic relationship, to say the
You
least.
don't say.
So obviously the biggest issue with this system was, of course, first what Alpha just said right now, and mostly was the fact that imagine you produced 10 healthy eatable potatoes, right? It won't be that little, but out of 9 out of those 10s had to go to the vassals, to the lords, and you get to keep one potato out of your
If you were
entire,
lucky.
if you were lucky. And so it was completely like you would be, it was basically slavery to a certain degree. It was like you won't even know if any of your work will even pay off, right? It was,
It's not slavery. It's more like, imagine you have no education.
I
The
mean, at
only
that
thing
point
you
nobody
know
really had
is that you
education.
wake up. No, the rich people and members of the church certainly had
Only
education.
member of the church had.
No,
uh
and rich people too.
no, at that time they didn't have yet. It
Y-
was like,
They
it was only,
they did. They had private tutors. A lot of the time, they were members of the church.
I mean, yeah, but it was always related to the church anyways.
Yes, but you would learn how to write, to read some natural sciences,
Yeah,
etc.
which at the
So
time was
you
basically
had
put leeches
education.
on your nipples and hope you don't die.
Yeah.
Not very advanced shit.
You are not ill. You have a demon. Uh,
And this little black creature is gonna suck it out of your tits.
yeah. But it's more like you were a cog in a machine. You weren't human. You were a quota. Your house gets burned down by a raid.
Cry about it.
Tough luck, chuckle nuts. The only purpose you had in life was to give profit. You can't do that. You aren't worth anything. Go die in a ditch.
Yeah, and these people,
That's why, for example, we had this romanticized version of knights. Knights, a lot of the time, acted like legit mercenaries. They would go to the highest bidder, offer their services, and raid the land. And the villagers couldn't do shit. There was no outcry for justice. It was the natural order.
yeah, it's funny that like knights in popular culture are portrayed as like these almost revolutionary like
Beacons
people.
of shining armor.
And not just that, is like you always have that one knight that would like go against the king and be all powerful and all this, and it would be like, and they would want to fight for the rights of their people. But that is a very like modern day like centered idea of what the medieval era would
Liberal.
be,
Sorry.
because that didn't happen. Like knights could not give less
Yeah,
of a
like
fuck about the less fortunate.
the best example I have seen of modern day knights is fucking Game of Thrones.
That's
Like the way George R. R. Martin portrayed knights in that show is pretty close to what we could expect in real life, to be honest.
So yeah, basically people at the time had absolutely no rights. They were barely even
You
considered.
weren't people.
You
That is
were
the issue.
you were farmers. That's you're not even
You
like
were a little guy.
you're just a little fucker that makes food for you. So that's feudalism for you. Then you have the sort of, if you want to, mainly what the idea of this blog was, the idea of talking about the main like a global economic system. Obviously, at feudalism wasn't exactly a global economic system, because the idea of something being global was not exactly existent back then.
No, like
Uh,
you had. I'm pretty sure the Chinese is something different, for example.
yeah, so it was definitely, but here we're talking Europe. That's we're talking about Europe for now.
Because we are biased. Cry about it.
And because we live in Europe, and at the end of the day, Europe was the more advanced. For many years, was always more advanced when it comes to this type of stuff, or was always the pioneer of this sort of
That is
economic
false,
stuff.
but I will not get on your ass.
I mean, I get what you mean, but like it is at least what is mostly
I'm gonna tell
recognized.
you something. Asia was a lot more advanced in terms of technology than we think,
I'm not talking about technology.
and social concepts and philosophy. The
Yeah,
Indian philosophers and astronomers were something else.
yeah, I know. I've. Oh, sorry. That was a weird little whistle. Yeah, I've studied a lot. I've studied. I've tried to learn about that stuff, but it's also, to be fair, it's not that easy because
Yeah,
uh
I have way too much time on my hands. Don't
because
worry.
schools in Europe don't exactly care about that shit. Uh, anyways, then no, and fuck. Then on to the
Anyway,
next the next concept, which is called mer- merc mercant mercantilism. It's a very weird word to say in English.
yeah,
Uh, what?
yeah, it's a weird word. Don't worry.
Which has to do with merchants, right? Has to do with the idea of
No shit.
uh, which has basically was born out of when countries really started. This is, of course, this is thousands. This is almost like what is like 700 years later. If you want to draw from like the earliest points of like feudalism to like the earliest points of mercantilism, it is many
Once
many
again,
years.
you are more knowledgeable than I am on this topic, so
Because I believe that like feudalism as more classical feudalism or whatever is like started around the ninth century. Mercantilism was started around the 16th century, so that's a lot of years. It's
it's a lot of time.
so but yeah, it basically is when countries are now a more formed thing. You have the need of international trade, right? The idea of having to trade certain things, or at the time, mostly you didn't really try to trade. It was mostly trying to kind of flex on other countries.
You would also trade,
There was
sure.
also trade, but it was very
You
like
would trade a
when you
lot.
would
Like,
trade stuff, it was more of like colonies, like trying or like doing that.
okay, where are we on the timeline?
We are during the sort of discovery of the world or
17th century,
16th century. Well,
16th century. Oh shit! Like, for example, we Portuguese are famous for our wines, because our wines are dope as shit, and we for many years are traded with the English.
yeah.
It wasn't just for flex; it was a mutual relation.
No, there was definitely countries. Portugal and England are one example that we very much had a close relationship. It was also very much
I'm
out of
thinking with like
it was very much out of spite,
Holland.
probably to the to the French. But yeah, there was definitely countries that had close relationships, but there was definitely in Europe there was definitely this sort of like this
Dick measuring
like dick
contest.
measuring contest of like who had the most gold, who had the craziest sort of technologies, who had the
Yeah, but I
craziest
wouldn't
arts.
say it was the the
But
the
but that
majority.
was the majority. But there was definitely like at least like the kings, right? And like the mostly like the
The
uh
court always tried to dick measure. It's the fucking court. They had nothing better to do than be rich.
yeah. So that was that. Of course, I when it comes to Americanism, all I have to really mention is colonialism, right? It is an abhorrent part of history.
Yeah,
We massacred culturally so many different populations. There's till this
and the
day,
scars are still left to this fucking day.
yeah, and they're a lot more they're a lot more prevalent than you might think. The fact that like in most of like that in the most of the world we have a two gender like focused like world, or at least to most people we still do, is because of colonialism and the
Which we got racism because of colonialism.
yeah, and we got any basically any sort of like
Social construct.
modern day like discrimination of any like characteristic of a human can have was basically born well, not all of them, but like a lot of the prevalent ones are definitely came from this time,
Yeah,
mostly when it has to do exactly with racism. That is beyond obvious. Mostly when
I
it
wrote an entire paper about that.
yeah, so that there's that, and then of course the spread of Christianity definitely spread a lot of
That was
that was horrendous.
earlier.
Yeah, but it was definitely part of still of colonialism. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, it was their
no, I mean
God-given right and duty to educate the savages.
of course when it comes to the spreading of Christianity, it didn't just happen during colonialism, but colonial it still did happen during colonialism. It already
Yeah,
happened
yeah,
before
yeah.
that. But like for
There
example,
is those famous paintings of like European sailors coming up with crosses and stuff.
yeah, and it's just not just that. It's just like looking at like indigenous or more uh indigenous cultures, for example, or like very or yeah, basically like fuck, I'm forgetting the word native cultures. I of
Yeah,
like
native, native.
of like native cultures of like certain countries that were colonized, like general South America. I'm not sure exactly which countries, so don't I'm not
Brazil,
yeah, no,
Brazil, and Peru.
but I'm gonna bring something specific up. But if, I was gonna bring up again the gender thing because there's a lot of like native, like American cultures, and for example, even in other like indigenous cultures, where the idea of there being more than two genders was a thing, has been a thing, or was a thing
I can do
thousands
you
years back.
one better.
Uh,
Sex, sex was
sex,
so much more present in
yeah,
the ancient cultures. Like, look at the Greeks and the Romans and the
yeah,
Egyptians and the statues and gods and temples that we have from them.
and
They were a
so
lot more lax than we than we are. The
yeah,
communal bathhouses and stuff were pretty commonplace all throughout ancient history. So
and so
they
because
definitely
of
had their leg up on that.
and because of the fact that Christianity created this taboo around the idea of, for example, representing, doing like representing a person whilst naked, or anything that had to do with sex, or anything like that, it was such like a
You know how the queen and the queen fucked.
what?
The king and the queen
Uh,
couldn't have sex while naked. So they had robes that
okay,
would touch the ground with a little hole in
ew,
each for their respective
that's horrendous.
sexual organs. And they
Uh,
had to do it in missionary position as to not fall into temptations. But they had to pray first in case they died during the act. I fucking love
uh,
Christianity.
anyways, yeah, so Christianity definitely had a lot of impact, and of course, mercantilism, again, very oppressive economic system for the the workers, etc. So basically, nothing new, right? All the same issues that we have from feudalism. Some were slightly better, some were could even be deemed as worst, because now we we have slavery, which while feudalism it did happen. I don't know if statistically it happened less, but I don't know. It
Nah,
definitely,
fuck, it happened. There
yeah,
were still a lot of slaves.
yeah.
Just
But
it wasn't like, oh, you are an animal. It was more like you are the spoils of war.
yeah, it's fuck. It's all fucked. Like, that's what we have to say. Uh,
Beyond
then
fuck
then after that, we come to our favorite, our beloved liberalism, the thing that we love so much. That is
the
definitely
liberals.
fucking fucking
Not
liberalism.
not fucking annoying.
Uh, so for those who don't know what liberalism is and how it came to be, basically during the year of, is it 19, when is the French Revolution? 79?
19, what the fuck?
17,
700s.
17, no, that's also wrong. 1779, something like that. 80, is it in the
Wait a second. I
1780s?
think that's the Decapitation of the King. The
That's
French
that's that's
Revolution.
what I want to talk about, is when they decapitated the king. So
No, but okay, it was between 1789 and 1799.
789. Ah, okay. So the French, the French,
The French are fucked.
they were like, fuck you, king, and they chopped his head off, and then
Beast.
created something known as a republic. France basically became in modern times the first concept of a country that was not ruled by a king, but
And
was
then
ruled.
Napoleon came.
And then, yeah, that's hilarious. I think it was ruled that was ruled
Tip
by
some fuckos.
was run by a government, right? It was not run by this singular uh basically person who came there because of there was just their right, because they were born that way. It was a That's when democracy, right, the idea of voting for a leader came, and then they voted for,
Napoleon intensifies. I'm
then the
sorry.
Napoleon. So good luck with that, France. But yeah, regardless, they kind
You were
of
so promising, and then you
basically
fucked it all up.
they showed to Europe and to all the other monarchies in Europe that, hey, there's another option, and everybody was like, whoa, huh? There's more. And
Like
so,
European powers declared war because they were afraid what it might do.
yeah, and so basically, because of the French Revolution, then mixed in with the then mixed into the Industrial Revolution, came.
It was a lot later. Holy shit!
I know, but it was like 100 years later. But in between, in between, because of the idea of the loss of monarchies and the development uh, democracies, and then in the 19th century, with the sort of the idea of, again, having like individual rights, having like free trade, etc. Then came liberalism. Of course, with liberalism, then also came, for example, constitutional monarchies. I think that's the right name, which is what, for example, England is nowadays, and Belgium,
Fucking British.
Belgium, Holland, not Holland, the Netherlands. I mean, Spain. Uh, who else am I missing in Europe?
I don't remember anyone else, to
The
be honest.
Swedish, I think.
I don't think the Swedish have a
Is it? Is
constitutional
it?
monarchy.
They do have. I think it's. Is it the Swedes that have a king? I don't remember. I don't remember. Anyways,
Let me
uh,
see.
I,
How many constitutional monarchies do we have? We
um,
have. Okay, so we got. Oh my god. Liechtenstein, Monaco,
Liechtenstein, yeah,
Morocco, Liechtenstein, Jordan,
Jordan, not to be mistaken
Kuwait,
with
Quaat,
what?
Bahrain, Bhutan.
Bahrain. You don't.
I don't
Wait,
know
are
how
you
to
say was
pronounce.
the, or did you meant to say Qatar?
No, what the fuck?
Wait, what? So what was the first
Uh,
one? QA?
Quaet.
Yeah, I can't spell that in my mind. I'm
It's
too
near
dumb.
It's near the northern edge of Eastern Arabia. United Kingdom, Commonwealth realms,
Yeah.
Netherlands, Spain, Belgium, Norway, Sweden,
Ah, see, I knew it. They're there.
Lesotho, Lesotho? I don't know. Malaysia, Thailand,
Yeah. So
Cambodia, and Japan.
there's a lot of them.
Japan still has an emperor? Holy shit.
Huh? Then how did they not have? How the fuck did Americans not fuck that? That's surprising. What the hell? Anyways, that
No,
caught off
give me
me
a second. I think they don't have an emperor.
because like during after World War II, like America, like Japan basically became like a a proxy
They have
state
an
of.
emperor. It's called. He's called. Give me a second. I'm not gonna mispronounce this. No. Okay. Google Translate. Here I come. Give me the voice. Naruhito.
Anyways, basically during the 19th century.
Translation is Naruto, by the way.
Okay.
The
Uh,
translation to Portuguese is Naruto. I don't know how that works.
I feel like that's racist. I don't know why, but
It's same.
anyways, during the 19th century came liberalism. Now, what is liberalism? It is an
State of my
idea.
existence.
Liberalism is basically, it's not the first, but it is a form of capitalism. This is when capitalism starts popping up. That like goofy little fuck, uh, which is basically the idea that we champion the idea of individual rights, of being your own worker, not having to work for uh, basically a king or whatever, and basically this idea of individual wealth, right? Which is still something that is present to this day. Of course, with that happening, you then created new social classes, which was the bourgeoisie, and then you had the proletariat.
Give
uh,
me a second. The bourgeoisie already existed. The bourgeoisie.
I know it's not the first time that it was that name.
The bourgeoisie exists since courts exist. It's literally the upper middle class.
Yeah, but the
No, it's the
bourgeoisie.
upper class. It's the highest you can go before you can go to become an actual member of the court.
Yeah. So you have the
The
bourgeoisie,
bourgeoisie are the lords.
which became filthy rich during this time, basically the
They
upper
already
class.
were.
Yeah, but it was different because the bourgeoisie basically at this time were, well, business owners, right? They were what we have today as like CEOs and anybody that had a successful business, right? These were people that had absolutely no human decency, and would put little children working on in factories and horrendous human rights violations. uh,
Uh, you know, um, you know those French assholes that told the poor people go eat shit
didn't that happen?
before the revolution?
Uh, maybe.
The guys that would party in Versailles
Oh
every
yeah,
single day. Yeah, those are bourgeoisie.
I
Also,
know.
they
Well,
wore
like
potatoes on their head
I know, I know, but like
because
we're
they
talking
didn't know what to use them for.
that's a fly on my face. Sorry. Yeah, but we're talking about like bourgeoisie in this context, obviously.
I'll be
Uh,
honest, I don't know if that's the correct term, but go with it.
I think it is. I might be wrong, but correct me if I'm wrong.
I
Uh,
wouldn't know more than you. I'm sorry.
so basically, what has started happening during this time is a lot of economic inequality started happening, and this is also the time when Karl Marx was walking the earth,
The
uh,
goat.
and the socialist ideas started popping up as a direct response to liberalism, because socialism is basically the antithesis of liberalism, at least at the time. Was the best alternative. Uh, and so we have liberalism, but then we also have neoliberalism, which is basically after the Second World War ended, we sort of had a re rebirth of liberalism. It's basically the same in its sort of main ideas, but it's somehow worse
Yeah.
uh, in the sense that, and it's I don't know if it's worst. It is definitely when you take into account that it's been like so many years that it's that the fact that it's still that bad is like impressive. Like how the fuck they, like after so many years that you somehow like do something that is still that bad. Which basically neoliberalism has is the idea is basically what the U.S. is. The U.S. is a neoliberal country. Is a country that believes in privatization of uh, basic needs. It has the idea of deregulation of like markets so that they can do like crazy innovation, right? So they can innovate like without any without anything holding them back. That's the whole concept, is this idea of the free market, this idea that you like having competition is the best way possible. So just let everything run wild. Um which is cool, but it doesn't work
Is
because
it? Is it?
no, it is not cool. Uh, and of course, just like every other ideology that we have mentioned previously, there's one main thing that if you boil it all down into a single couple of principles, it applies to all of these ideologies, which is you have a higher class which abuses the lower class, whilst the lower class creates all the riches of the upper class, and with the hope that at some point those riches will drop down to them, but they never do. That is, I
Yeah, it's the
just
idea that the market will trickle down.
all what I just described, in some way can describe all of the four previous ideologies that I've mentioned. Feudalism and the idea that these people who worked in these lands had prospered into one day being vassals or lords. Mercantilism, people that were small merchants, one day hope to be big, lords or whatever the fuck.
They didn't hope. They were consigned to a life of
Yeah,
miserable existence. You want to know a fun fact?
sure.
You see Japan, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, but yeah.
Thinking of Japan? You're thinking of Japan right now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, Japan, Japan.
Um, Living in Japan was fucked because if you were a merchant, you were almost same level as a slave, and the samurai, you can only become a samurai if you're born into the clans. And if they felt like you had disrespected them, they could just murder you on spot and be completely protected by the law.
Human rights. Those are great
Yeah,
rights.
just take that knowledge, store it with you, and keep going because we talk a lot of shit about Europe,
Yeah, the whole world is
but
fucked.
yeah, the whole world there is, we have gone to shit.
Yeah, so basically, a thing that I talk about the blog is a predatory pattern, which is basically a consistent pattern throughout every dominant global system that we've had in the past, which is it never really focuses on people as people, right? They always, because liberalism defends that it protects the individual, but it only sees the individual as a generator of wealth, and
Yeah,
that's
a
not what
safety.
a human being is. A human being is not a producer of wealth or of a product or whatever. They are a human
A,
being, and so to us is that is what the fundamental issue is with all these different ideologies, is that they focus on the wrong aspect of everything. They focus mainly on the idea of maximizing profits no matter what, and that is not something that is doable in a sustainable manner. And I'm not even talking, when I say sustainable, I'm not even talking right now about the environment. I am talking about purely the idea of it being something that won't drive people insane to the point that they won't at some point just have a revolution because they are sick of it.
or just pop their heads.
Yeah, or just commit suicide, which is
Yeah, because that is
basically
the
what is happening nowadays. Is people
why
just,
do you think we have a mental health crisis? It's
yeah.
not because of those bank phones. They do sure help,
It's not
but
because
it's
of
because we live
5G
in a time.
waves, you fucks. It's because
Yeah.
those fucks, I'm talking
We
about
live
those
under oppressive
Karens.
systems.
It's because we have an insanely oppressive system that could not give less of a fuck about you. And slowly, even if you are the biggest uh, political cocksucker, like the wait, did I say? No, I mean, like, what's the term? Like, you're basically on your knees for like capitalism, right? Even when you're always saying that capitalism is the best thing ever and everything like that, you suffer every day because of it. And at some point, you will lose it, and you don't even realize what caused it. And at the end of the day, all that like capitalism, its main focus, just like I said, is maximizing capital gain at all costs, right? The idea is that if you are able to generate a max amount of wealth, it will eventually trickle down into the lower classes, which is why it's called trickle down economics, and then everybody will be happy. The issue is that that is basically the way that that is thought is this idea that people are well, charitable. This is something that we
What?
previously basically criticized when it comes to, for example, anarchy, which is this idea that you have a system that operates purely on the good. Was what we did say before, like um, the good intentions of
The
people, like what, like,
yeah, and the ability to be kept in check by oneself.
yeah, basically being like, yeah, we're all nice and friendly, so surely we will,
I won't commit
and
murders.
surely we will act nicely. And that's basically what capitalism does, is it lets huge corporations exist with immense amount of wealth. And basically, because there's this sort of like idea of deregulating them, and not like regulation when it comes to corporations isn't strict enough, they can accumulate immense amount of wealth. And because there's nothing really like keeping them in check, the idea is that yes, eventually that money does trickle down into their workers, but it doesn't, because they don't have to and they don't want to. So they just don't. That's basically it. Like, they just don't want to. They're like, nah, we're not gonna give you your like, we're not gonna give them you the money that you rightfully own, because it essentially just isn't, like, we just don't want to. Like, it's simple as that. And so, of course, that's the main flaw that we feel every day now, is that we have a system that is not designed to benefit uh, the masses, is, is not designed to benefit me, or alpha, or the common, the layman, uh, but it is designed to benefit hugely already rich people.
The
um,
richer get richer while the poor get poorer.
and that is it's awful. Like, it shows uh it shows that the current system is a failure. It's a complete and utter failure of that just isn't even self-aware, unfortunately, of its own failures. It thinks that it's the way that it needs to fix itself is becoming more of itself, right? Like, it is an inherently flawed system, that its whole concept of becoming better is by becoming more of it. But you can't fix a system by making that system more prevalent or even more extreme, because if it's already flawed, like, you
Yeah,
can't.
if there are inherent flaws, you
It's
can just
like
say, "But it'll get fixed itself.
it's
Don't
like
worry."
it's like trying to build a skyscraper and building it on shitty foundations, and your whole logic is that the higher you build it, the stronger the foundations will become. It won't. It'll just become more brittle, and it eventually will snap. It's completely just
Unsustainable.
yeah, it's unsustainable. Again, just like I said, not like, yes, it's also unsustainable in an environmental point of view, but it's just out of a,
But also in a humanitarian point of view.
yeah, it's at some point, just like the French did, they eventually snapped and beheaded a fucking their king. So don't know if it's going to be that extreme that we're going to start to be decapitating
CEOs.
CEOs, but we have
Imagine,
we have been further from doing that. Um
Like we have done some weird shit.
So yeah, of course, if you want to go into the environmental issues, that is pretty clear. Just like I said before, there it's any means necessary. So of course, they don't give a shit about the planet. Uh, I think that is something that is very obvious that is happening because we've been aware of global warming for what, half a century maybe now, like at least 50 years. It's been a long ass time.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, basically, when scientists were like, "Whoa, hold up, we're starting to realize that we're like destroying the planet," and corporations are basically they're like, "Yeah, okay, and we don't care. This will be the next generation's problem." But the issue is that we're reaching a point where there's no that issue can't be next generations. The problem of the next generation because that next generation might not exist if we keep
Yeah.
pushing it down to the next one. And so we need to, of course, yeah, that's just not good. And then, of course, when it comes to um, like social inequality and just economic inequality, there's no capitalism has no benefits in, or in its eyes, it has no benefits in giving money to the poor because why would you if its entire point is to benefit individual capital, then in essence it's better to focus on a rich few rather than the masses, right? Because that's not individual, right? It's not one person. And so it's bad. And then of course there's the entire, which is one of the biggest issues with liberalism, is the entire myth around the idea that if you work hard enough you will eventually become rich, right? Is this it's basically the American dream, right? It's this idea that if you own a corner store, but if you work, you know 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 50 years, when you're at the age of 70, let's say, you will be rich because you worked hard enough. That is not true. That never happens like that. And as much as there's people who try to sell you the idea that they did it like that, it is not true because they are missing one very important aspect or one very important detail, is luck.
Yeah.
Is that one thing in the middle there, because at some point they were lucky that one other already rich person, which is what it already, which mostly happens, either invested in their business or they already had a wealthy family member. That is not working from the ground up. There's no actual like billionaire currently in place that either had a fully original idea that started from the ground up, or if they did start from the ground up, where they didn't fuck over an immense amount of people to get there.
Yeah.
Because you can look at, for example, people like Amazon
Mark
and
Zuckerberg.
yeah, Mark Zuckerberg is a good example. Like he fucked
Yeah, his
over,
best friend fucking sued him for millions.
and you have, for example, Jeff Bezos, who, as much as I don't know the full history of Jeff Bezos, it is very easy to tell that he doesn't pay his workers, which is how he accumulates so much wealth. Right? There's the only way to achieve the 1% is with luck,
Shortcuts.
is with shortcuts, with which is like luck fucking people over and just being highly
Illegally.
unethical, being no, illegally fucking people illegally up most of the times, because of course there's the
Yeah.
ones who do it illegally, but unfortunately the shit that you see most of the times is illegal, which is insane. uh which is why most of like these people are rich, because like, yeah, like the reason why
There's
Jeff,
a system that protects them.
yeah, there's a system that protects them because the system wants them to be in there. And so there's all these different horrendous aspects to what capitalism is. um of course we do not support that. I think it's pretty clear. I think it's pretty clear from certain things that we have done in the past. For example, Project Pop is a good example.
Profits
uh
over people.
God damn it.
Uh,
But
I will
yeah,
not let that go.
People Over Profits is one of our projects, is a good example of us not aligning ourselves and not supporting capitalism. It is a system that we not believe in, and it has been proven over and over again that it's a failing system and that it will be our doom. if we do not move on. Um, and of course, we have a project, a Green Event Horizon, which at a degree is very similar in the sense that it's if we don't do something about it, we will be doomed. But it's now in the focus of the environment because as much as money is cool and all, and in some situations in our current economic system is very useful to have money to be able to survive. If there's no planet to live on, I could not give less of a fuck about any amount of money because at that point I'm going to be dead
Yeah.
because
You
because
can't take your check to your bank account, to your grave, I mean.
like you can't like who gives a fuck if you have $10 trillion if Earth is a ball of fire. Like, what are you gonna do with that money? Put it up your ass when you're gonna be burning to
Ah,
death?
space station, dog.
Nah, because
Sorry.
like it's not sustainable. Because then they'll just do the same to the space station. But it's
It's like that plus Love and Death plus Robots episode where humanity fucking dies,
and they
and the
go to
robots are like, okay, what did they do? Oh, this group did this, and this group did that, and they all fucking died because they were all morons.
yeah, and it's true. Like it's true that if we don't do anything, we are a bunch of morons, and we have every resource that we want. We have all the knowledge that we need to do something about it, and we don't, because of several aspects that we've talked about before, because of bad education that doesn't educate us well enough to fight back about these certain topics, about general just uh, the fact, just like Alpha said before, the fact that we are just socially like just run down. Like most of us are ready to blow our own heads off at any moment, and the fact that we have like this super depressive like mentality nowadays, like is fucked. Because like if you were completely and utterly like hopeless and depressed, like why would you even want to fight for anything, right? And whilst I do not have that point of view because I do want to fight for something, I can't judge you too much because I get what you mean, right? If you see that there's no hope anymore and you're hopeless, like why waste your last breath like doing something that you don't believe in? And of course that's sad. And there's so many people that I know. I'd say most people that I know are like that. So it's become kind of the norm. I mean, it's also one of the reasons why that we wanted to do Politdigm is exactly for those type of people, of course, that are looking for hope or whatever. Um, but yeah, uh, I don't know. I think I've pretty much talked about everything that I
Yeah.
wrote down on the blog. I think there was a couple more stuff, like a line that I love to talk about, which is that kind of going back to like the predatory pattern of the different ideologies that we've had in the past, which is that, for example, capitalism is just neo feudalism. Because it's just a new form of feudalism. Because at the end of the day, we also have our lords.
Which is, sorry to cut you off, it's fucking hilarious, given into the account the idea that capitalism is basically the brainchild of America and the United States of America, seeing as though the Americans literally fought a war to distance themselves as much as possible from the ideas of monarchy and feudalism.
Yeah, yet they elect a
So
president.
fucking stupid.
Yet they elect a president that thinks that was put there by God, and that they view and that they cherish and love that president in a very monarchy esque way, in the same way that, for example, the English very much look up to their king, because there's no
God
other
bless the king.
there's barely
It's fuck.
any other country in the world that has the same sort of relationship with their president that the US has. Like in Portugal,
Yeah.
nobody gives a fuck about our president.
We take selfies with him.
Like he just
And
walks
that's
down this
it.
he just walks down the street with barely like maybe two guards and will
I
like
don't
take
know
it.
about that.
No, yeah, like it just like who the fuck like if somebody shanks him, nobody gives a
Also,
fuck.
the last time someone made an attempt on our leader's life was, well,
Like our last king
we,
or some shit. I don't
I
know.
mean, Yeah,
We
given it, we
did. We
got
did
a
also. We
fucking
did also
guy.
murder our king, by the way. So we're not
Yeah, because we are goaded with the sauce. Uh,
down to the monarchy. But yeah, it's funny how different. Like when you come to Europe, like there's not this like idea of like the president. Like my entire life, I knew that there was like a president of the Portuguese Republic, but I was so used to like the representation of the president of the United States that like it's so underwhelming to then be in Europe and being like, yeah, this is my president, this old fuck, like that nobody gives a shit about. Not even the people of his own party really like him that much. So it's like, all right, cool. Is this guy who's basically like a mascot that just sits here and does like I don't know what does he do? I don't think any, but barely people know what the fuck our president does, and so it's like, yeah, cool. So there's definitely that, and it's funny again, like just like Alpha said, how it's funny that certain countries like the U.S. have tried to distance themselves as much from a monarchy, but when you start replacing words like president with king, CEOs with lords, and shit like that. It's all the same thing as feudalism. It's the exact same shit, just slightly more advanced in the sense that it's like sure we have rights now or a little more rights if you're not an immigrant or whatever. So it's the same shit. It's the same shit over and over and over again for the last what 117
you got this.
like 1,700 years maybe if I'm not going to count with the Roman Empire and stuff.
What the fuck? That's all. I
No,
mean, go back to the concept
if I only start
of
counting after the Romans, if I only start counting after the fall of the Roman Empire, right?
which one?
Like the full one. When we consider that
That's
the
that's not how it works.
I know there because no
The
after
one with
like
Rome or the one with no Rome?
the one with no Rome.
That one fell in 1300.
Yeah, so okay, I was like 200 years off. Chill. Okay, chill off. I
You
know
said
you're
17
no,
or 700.
I said 1,007 that was for the last 1,700 years we've been
It's
with
not
shit.
1,700 years. That's 700 years. Where
What?
the fuck did that 1,000 come from?
What? I'm
Okay,
confused.
go back to your statement.
Anyways, it's all been the same shit. Like, sure, the Greeks they developed democracy, and
And they still had slaves
they
and
still
people
had
that were
slaves and shit, but they didn't
people that weren't
really.
the citizens. At least they had cults like Dionysus where you could get high off your fucking mind.
But to be fair, they didn't really have the same concept of like an economy as we do. Like to them the
That's
economy was
also
more of like I mean it's basically where the origin of the word economy comes from, which was basically like fuck what's it called kind of the organization of your house was like this idea of like it was more it wasn't like a there was no global economy during the Greeks in that sense. So it's definitely different, but it's always like we've always been in this perpetual horrendous shit that is I don't know, like it's funny because like at this point I do get like the nihilist view of like yeah we're just this way and there's just no hope because like holy shit you look back at time and there's no one period of time where everything has actually been good and you can't even be like, yeah, but if you ignore, no. You can't ignore. It's not like those people who say make America great again, and they're like, yeah, America was great during like I don't know when slavery was a thing, but when you call them out of like, yeah,
What
but
the
that's
fuck?
but that's when slavery was a thing. Is yeah, no, but like if you ignore when you ignore that slavery was happening during that time, America was great. You can't
You
ignore
know, we
slavery.
were really peaceful uh towards I don't know, Japan near the end of World War II, even though they attacked us. Oh, you mean when we dropped the nuke on them? Yeah, but just ignore that.
No, and don't just ignore the nuke. Ignore the second one too.
Ignore the second one. The
Don't even.
first was, hey, we have a nuke. The second was, we're gonna fucking do it again.
So it's like we can consistently commit atrocities. The next episode of the
Yeah,
podcast is going to be about another one, which is
that will be on my part.
which will be the apartheid in Israel. So it's like holy shit, like it is not like
Yeah, I'm getting ready for that blog. I need to be in a certain state of mind.
a certain crazed manic state.
I'm gonna
uh
close all my windows in my room, bring my coffee mug and coffee machine into my room, like 30 packs of Cheetos and stuff, and sit down for 3 days straight.
three grams like 300 grams of antidepressants per
And
hour,
cocaine.
because you're going to read about so many war crimes and so many human
Holy
rights
shit.
violations that you're going to want to kill yourself.
I already do on a daily basis, but then you add that stuff, it's like kill yourself squared.
Jeez, yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, for those who don't know, was it the 6th of October? So 3 days ago from when we're recording this, a terrorist group basically lost it, in very broad terms, and decided to, uh,
Bombed the shit out of Israel and
uh,
invaded.
so we're kind of whilst previously on our Instagram on the Politdigm Pulse check, somebody did recommend that we talked about this exact topic. It's been a topic that we've kind of not wanted to talk about because we're not well
Knowledgeable.
versed and educated enough in it. But now that we're knees deep into the situation of terrorist group, taking, killing civilians, Israel also killing civilians, and this
Taking them
whole
hostage.
taking them hostage to try to get political, like blackmail,
I don't know
or not even
why they
blackmail.
did it.
It's
I
like,
just know that they did it.
yeah, they're
It's
basic.
gonna be for next
It's
episode.
gonna be for the next episode,
It's
but
still
it's a good example
too
of
new. It's
current
too new, and
horrendous
then
shit.
we don't know enough. So, in favor
Uh
of if not saying anything
yeah,
that isn't correct, we are going to s- like postpone it.
yeah. So next episode you have that to look forward to. Um, but yeah, it's not that hard. I think that to kind of summarize and to have a conclusion, on this topic, is that when you really think about it, politics and economy and all that is not that complicated. And when people try to tell you that it is, honestly, it's kind of bullshit. Maybe it's because I'm well educated on
Okay,
it, and so to me it's
it
easy.
is complicated.
It is complicated.
Politics is just trying to it's trying to learn all. It's also complicated, but it's trying to learn all the finer machinery within each individual ideology. It has a skill ceiling, you know.
I know, but
The learning curve is high.
I think that it's also very easy to look at our current, without any knowledge of it, of looking at our current system, having any sense of empathy, and being like, this should not be like this. This should be like that. I think, to me, I've never, like, I am not. I don't have any degree on politics or anything. So I have
Even into
very,
account, you're not even in university yet.
like, I'm not even in university yet. I'm in high school. I'm not even studying. Like, I'm not even getting a degree in anything relating to politics. I'm getting a marketing degree. I'm getting a communications and marketing degree, which, yes, does definitely help when it comes to like economy, because I'm very aware of the idea and the intricacy of markets and stuff like that, and how that shit works. But like, I am not, I'm not out here studying humanitarian sciences and all that. So I'm not super well versed in it, but I can look at what capitalism is and just see how rotten and horrendous it is, and look at, leftist ideologies and see how, their whole concept behind it. I'm like, this is not that hard to understand how this shit works. One focuses on businesses, one focuses on human beings.
Yeah,
Easy as that. I don't
and I
have to.
think that's it for this episode.
We can still ramble a little bit. We're still under an hour. We can still. We can
Seeing
still.
as though it is late.
I know, but yeah, it's definitely.
At this point, I have nothing more to say. Capitalism is evil, it's the bane of our existence, and we have to move past it.
Yeah, that was the main focus of this blog, was to show that every ideology has had its moment, its time, that it existed, and at the time there was definitely a logic to it. And at the time when it started, like when like, don't get me wrong, when liberalism showed up, it was great for some people, that's for sure, but it was definitely better than the system before. That's true, because that's when we started having the idea of human rights, when we started having the idea that certain people actually deserve to have, certain things. When before it was kind of, horrendous, like we've mentioned before. But that was at the time it was a good thing, but then as it evolves, people start realizing that, hold up, this is not enough, we need to go further. Then we have neoliberalism, which is arguably in some cases a bit better, but in others equally as bad, if not worse, depending on the point of view. And so we've come to a point where it's very clear that we've come past capitalism, where it's very clear that capitalism isn't working anymore. And arguably, you could say that it never worked, which is also a fair point because, in my opinion, it never really worked well. It was just a compromise, a system that tried to compromise on a bunch of shit. Which the compromise is always, sacrificing human lives, human well being for capital gain, which is not something that you do. People are not worth capital gain. You can't sacrifice a person to just make more money. Which at the end of the day was kind of the whole concept of like stuff like slavery, was this whole idea that you could use these people, because they're not even people, they're just toys or just tools that you can use to make more money.
Objects.
And so to me, that's why
Try and flex my philosophy muscles for a second.
go ahead.
One of my favorite philosophers is Immanuel Kant. And he was racist, but he was a brilliant mind, a man of perfect routine, and his greatest work is on ethics, to the point where you have the, well, I don't know the translation in English, but we have a common term for his work on ethics in Portuguese. And one of the main things he says is, you can never have a correctly moral choice if you don't think of the human being as a being in of itself. It is not a number or a statistic.
Yeah.
One person dying compared to 1,000 people dying is
Not
the
less bad.
it's the same. It's a tragedy in the same degree. One is not exponentially worse than the other. The fact that one person died is as bad as 1,000.
Yeah, and I think
So when you grab that and you go into systems where a person is a number on a spreadsheet,
yeah,
and basic human rights are not even accounted for, you start to see how rotten these types of systems are. Because a lot of the time, a lot of the time, there are people that claim that these people that are on the lower ranks of capitalist societies are uneducated and deserve their position, which is, one, downright cruel, and
elitist.
two, not true.
Yeah,
A lot of those people just happened to land on those jobs because of circumstances, and maybe if you were in the exact same circumstances as they are,
you would
you
not
would
like that.
fare a lot worse,
Yeah,
or you might have a better outcome. And that doesn't matter. They are still people. They don't deserve those horrible conditions.
but that's why to
They are
me,
human
like,
beings.
as a person who has myself been an immigrant, I think that the whole immigrant crisis is a very easy issue, in quotes, to solve. Again, in quotes.
It's
It's
not.
not in the sense that it's easy to solve, but I think that this whole idea of like, oh, we need to keep these, like, what do we do with immigrants? It's like, to me it's obvious, they're people. We need to give them, help. Like, we're not gonna be like, kill them. like
Yeah, don't build a wall.
in the sense of, what I mean solve it, I mean in that sense, in the sense of like, what do
Yeah,
we
just
do
do
with them?
something.
It's
Just
like, what
do
do we do with them?
something. Don't just leave them to
It's
rot.
like it's like treat them like human beings, number one, because
Yeah.
they're not numbers. They're not numbers on a headline, right? They're people, each with ambitions, each with a story, each with
A
families,
dream, a
and a lot
passion.
of and a lot of them, which is the saddest thing, that kind of end on a sad note here. The saddest bit of it is because a lot of these people on these boats are, for example, of younger demographics. And why? Well, because, for example, there's been many stories of like this, where, for example, a teenager or somebody around my age or Alpha's age is put on, for example, one of those boats, which are no immigrant boats. I don't know what if there's a specific name for it, but they're basically putting these boats to to run away from their countries where their parents and stuff like that stay behind in their country of origin because they basically they shipped away their son or their daughter with the idea of them having a better life. And whilst that is can be seen as like, oh, that's nice, but then when you start kind of humanizing these people, which is something that most people don't do, when you start thinking about the idea, like try to picture your own parents, like one day shipping you off into an unknown country. They don't know if you'll survive it, and and you might never see them again, and they are just doing it out of pure hope that that sacrificing themselves in the idea that you could have a better life. And whilst that's the whole point of parents, right, is sacrificing themselves for you having a better life. This is an extreme example of that.
Yeah.
And the idea that you can look at these people and then see a headline of like 40 people died in in a super crowded boat because it like toppled over and drowned, and you're like, oh, another fucking immigrants trying to come into our country. That is, to me, is baffling, because there's so many kids and families on those boats which are just like you and me, and it is so disgusting. It fills me with
It fills
such.
me with rage.
It doesn't even fill me with rage. It just fills me with pure sadness. I'm fun fact. There's like Alpha, when he gets mad, and when I get mad, I get sad. Uh, so it's like it's so saddening. Just I could never. It's, to me, it's incomprehensible, the idea that you could look at these certain issues and just be like, ah, they don't matter. I don't care. It just I can't. It's just completely. I have no words to describe the feeling I feel the words, because it's just, to me, it's just not possible. It's just something that I'm incapable of doing. The same way that I can't walk through a wall, or the same way that I can fly without an airplane, I can't look at these people and see them as just a number. I just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for ending on the depressing note. One day we have to do something about immigration because it's a complicated topic that is worth talking about.
Yeah, and a topic that, personally, as a person who has been an immigrant, definitely has a strong opinion on, and a very hands-on experience. Whilst my situation of immigration is not even
It
close to.
is, yeah, you were on the top percent when it comes to
Yeah,
immigration.
basically, it was like, yeah, I'm in a European country, which was, yes, in a after 2008, was poor, and basically my parents got a better business opportunity in a different European country, and we moved. Like, it's not, we didn't have to, we weren't fugitives of war or anything like that. But I definitely know
Yeah.
the feeling of, leaving everything behind that, going to an unknown country, not speaking a language, and being afraid
And
of
then you met me.
everything around you,
Congratulations, everything went downhill.
being afraid of everything around you, and then kind of going to this new country, and also being able to call it your home at some point, is definitely something that I can relate to, because it happened to me. And so it's to me, it's, I kind of hate when people start talking badly about immigrants, because I also, when I lived in Belgium, I had a lot of friends that were immigrants, or were children of immigrants. Most of my friend group was. And so, knowing how human these humans are, because of course they are, it's obvious that they are, it is so sad to, for example, see those people who, like, for example, people who are fleeing a country with like a super authoritarian Islamic government, or an Islamic state, right? That like are fleeing their country and come to Europe. For example, I have a very close Muslim friend, and I always, of course, that's the representation I had at the time of Islam in my life, and of course I naturally think of him. because he's my friend, and of course I know that he himself is an immigrant, and I know that his parents also had to leave their families behind to live better lives. And it's in seeing that there's kids with similar with this with a culture that is very reminiscent of his, which have uh cultural backgrounds which are similar, have even down to their you know appearance or similar, because they're from either the same country or from countries who have similar uh ethnic backgrounds. And being able to look at and trying to imagine him in that situation, or for example now when it comes to Palestine, which is or Palestinians or Muslim, trying to picture him in that situation is so like it makes me scared, because it's like I don't see him. I don't know. It's maybe this is kind of a weird example to give, but it's like it's trying to picture your own friend in like a situation which to some he would just be some dead body on the floor, but to me he isn't. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. On that note, on that weird comparison that I try to do.
Rest of a nice day. You can find all of our stuff on the links below in case you're watching us on YouTube, or if you are on audio platforms, cope and see them all.
And
We
make sure,
have a Patreon, we have a Discord server, which is free, but if you do join our Patreon, which we very much appreciate it if you do, you will have access to the Q&A section on Discord, as we mentioned in the beginning.
which will that Q&A will happen right now if we had questions. But it won't. We don't have any yet, which is fine, of course. Part of the evolution of Politdigm, at some point we will have so many questions that we can't keep track of them.
Hopefully, hopefully.
And of course, make sure to follow our socials if you do want to learn more about us. And for example, you are on a streaming service. The easiest way to find us is to just go to Instagram, Facebook, even Facebook, surprisingly enough. Go to Twitter. I refuse to call it anything else, and just search up Politdigm. Our name is the same everywhere. Search up Politdigm. Even go on Google, search up Politdigm, and you'll find all our links and everything you could possibly want. From reading our website to learn more about our beliefs and how we hate capitalism, and learning more about our projects. If you want to read our blog, if you want to do whatever, if you want to send us an email because I don't know you're bored, that's where you can find everything. So yeah, that's what you can do. So
Yeah,
thank you all so much for watching, and
be good people.
be good people, and fuck capitalism. See you all next
Yeah.
episode.